Hello everyone, my name is Matt, presenting to you a trailer breakdown hosted by the Film Buffs channel, in which I have a breakdown covering trailers. In the hot seat today is the trailer for the upcoming Sony Pictures film, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Now before we get into the trailer itself, let's talk a little bit about Jumanji. This infamous fictional board game got its first debut in a 1981 picture book by Chris Van Allsburg of the same name. The story gives us our two protagonists, Judy and Peter Shepard, who are bored being home alone and decide to go to the park, where they discover an abandoned game, Jumanji. The two take the game home and begin playing it, only to discover that the world of Jumanji pours out of it every time they roll the dice. Upon winning the game and exclaiming the game's title, everything returns back to normal, as if nothing ever happened. With great haste, the two pack up the game and return it back to the park, only to find out that their neighbors, Danny and Walter, have picked it up. Now we fast forward to the film adaptation of Jumanji. The plot of the film is very similar to Allsburg's books, albeit some more encounters with the board game itself. But mostly the biggest difference in this movie is the fixation on Alan Parrish's character as the protagonist rather than the Shepards. Speaking of Alan Parrish, the film adaptation's plot seems to be more adult-centric when compared to Allsburg's child-centric story. In addition, the film gives us more adult-based roles to follow in contrast to Allsburg's child-centric story, with the biggest change being that Judy and Peter's parents perished in a terrible, terrible accident. The film starts in 1969, where a young Alan Parrish discovers the game and decides to play it with his childhood friend, Sarah. Upon his first cast of the dice, Alan is sucked into the board game until another player can roll a 5 or an 8. Alan spends the next 26 years stuck in the depths of Jumanji until the Shepard siblings release him from his prison. The three then seek out and find their missing fourth player, Sarah, so they can finish the game. After surviving numerous bouts of peril, Alan declares the game's name and everything returns back to normal, placing both he and Sarah back in 1969. The two proceed to dump the game into the river, hoping to be rid of it for good. But unfortunately, it washes up onto a French beach, luring two girls to be its new players. With the way the 1995 film ends, it's almost certain that they were gunning for a sequel, so who knows, maybe that this new Welcome to the Jungle movie will be exactly what we've been waiting for. Or it'll be another franchise bust courtesy of Sony Pictures that makes the TV series look passable. But anyway, on with the trailer. We start by meeting the film's four protagonists, a jock, a nerd, a queen bee, and an introvert. I hate to hit the pause button here right now, but especially when we're in 20 seconds of the trailer, just to point out that we have to have a clip-by-clip showing of each of these characters as is. Like, it's not apparent enough to know which one's the jock, which one's the shut-in, and which one's the queen bee, and which one's the nerd. That's the best thing about the 1995 Jumanji film, is that you had differences in characters, and guess what? These characters actually all got along despite their differences, and it didn't need to finish a video game or a board game to do it. But I digress. So from what we're given, they're assigned to clean up the basement of the high school for their detention, because that actually happens in school, I guess. And that's where they come across the video game. And I will admit, when I saw this video game console, I'm like, okay, well, there's something there, because it does have the look of an Atari, and, it's retro enough. But when they plug the thing in, it's got PS1 graphics on it, even for the title screen. I'm like, no. That's not how you explain the gap between 1969 to whatever year this takes place in, and judging by the Queen Bee's selfie stick, this is modern day zeitgeist crap. So the four end up picking their avatars, and lo and behold, they get sucked into the video game. After the four fall from the sky and crash to the jungle floor, they pick themselves up and only to realize they're not themselves. Now, here's my beef with this whole setup. In the original film, you had the elements of the game coming to this town, Brantford. And that made it more interesting, because you knew what the game was going to throw to you because you're unfamiliar with it. You see this small town, New England town, and that's enough to get you going with, oh dear God, what's going to come out of Jumanji next? Is it going to be mosquitoes? Is it going to be monkeys? Is it going to be a lion? Is it going to be vines? Is it going to be venomous flowers? Is it going to be man-eating flowers? And that's how people worked with it. It was those people as themselves, not these mock-up avatars, because they didn't want to have a bunch of shithead kids doing these things. They needed to have a star-studded cast for a Christmas release that's only going to be outshadowed by Star Wars The Last Jedi. And there's nothing here to go off of. How are these kids supposed to learn anything at the end of this game when they're not themselves? They have their own unique abilities, other than Karen Gillan, for all I know, because all she's doing is doing her best Tomb Raider impression, and they even make a Tomb Raider joke to some extent. They're like, oh, it's not, this isn't jungleware. And I'm like, well, it is a movie. And for this trailer, that's about it. You don't really get much of anything else. You don't get much of a taste of how Jumanji became a video game. And aside from that, you don't have anything other than explosions and updated effects. Although I will admit they are really hammering in the comedic aspect of this movie, because that was so important for this Jumanji film. Not the thrill or horrific-based imagery of surviving jungle elements whatsoever. That's why the 95 film worked the way it did. It wasn't the best film, but it knew how to capture the ambience of a survival-based game. A lion comes out of the game and terrorizes 2 children for Robin Williams to save them and lock the damn thing in the bedroom. The little boy gets his foot trapped by a venomous man-eating plant and saves him by taking his father's sword and slices the thing. There's no sense of danger from this trailer. There's no sense of urgency or we're going to die. So already this movie fails to be a Jumanji film. It's not because of the board game either. This fails as the elements of the Jumanji game. There is no sense of danger. There's no sense of peril. There's no sense of we're all going to die if we don't know how to work together. But again, this is why I have no faith in Sony Pictures Entertainment whatsoever. They're not a film studio. They never were. They just bought this to make an investment and to show off their Sony tech in upcoming films. That's it. There is nothing in these franchise films as of late, especially after Ghostbusters, that shows that they know what they are doing. And remember, this is based off of one trailer only. I could be very much wrong, but given Sony's track record, I'm not holding my breath. Thank you again for listening. My name is Matt, and I hope to catch you all on the next trailer breakdown.